Donkey Kong has finally come back to us. After years of strange experimental titles involving touchscreens and bongo controllers, the Big Ape came back to his golden years when Retro delivered Donkey Kong Country Returns a few years back. It seems as though Retro isn't done with the tie-wearing hairball yet, as they have released a sequel. Returns surpassed its counterpart Donkey Kong Country with relative ease, but can they do it again? The expectations could never be higher than they are right now, and with this being Retro's first Wii U title, they had better deliver. Will Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze warm Wii U owners' consoles with gaming goodness, or should Retro stop monkeying around and turn the heat up? The Donkey Kong franchise has never been known for its storytelling, but every game needs to have something going on. This time, Donkey Kong's home has been assaulted by frosty Viking-like baddies from the north, and they intend to take DK's home for themselves. Not having any of it, Donkey Kong, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky all head out to take their islands back. You'd think that after this happened maybe twice, Donkey Kong would start to look into living in a different place. Like usual, the story is just a reason to play the game, and it's still an amusing reason. Each boss fight has an opening cutscene showcasing the villain before you pound him to powder, but there isn't any substance. Of course, with any game like this, that's to be expected. Donkey Kong Country is known for its stellar side-scrolling gameplay, and Tropical Freeze is no different, of course. It plays like Donkey Kong Country Returns, and all your actions mostly remain the same. What has changed is major though. You now have to hold the run button to grab onto vines, and you can get to other partners to help out. As mentioned, Dixie Kong and Cranky Kong join in on the fun, and it's good fun indeed. Dixie Kong uses her ponytail to propel Donkey higher after a jump, and Cranky allows you to bounce on his cane. Like in Returns, both Donkey and his partner have 2 hits each, and like Returns, another player can join in as a partner. The bad thing to the co-op is that this puts Donkey Kong at a severe disadvantage. There's a reason they are considered power-ups in this game, and playing co-op is almost like playing New Super Mario Bros. When one player has a propeller suit and the other doesn't. Co-op can still be fun, and the second player can become Donkey's power-up by jumping on his back, but it's still unbalanced. Playing single player, you'll probably be picking either Dixie or Cranky since they offer better jumping capability. Cranky's cane gives players the ability to bounce on spiky objects, including enemies wearing helmets, which makes him useful, and Dixie basically gives you a double jump with a little float on the side. The level design is as brutal and killer as it was in Returns, just this time it feels even more brutal. The difficulty level is pretty high, but it's unbalanced by just how frequently you earn lives. You can even buy lives from the store, just like in Returns. By the end of the game, I had over 800 coins and 65 lives. I haven't even dropped below 50 lives the entire game. Even still, there is no form of the super guide here, no super leaf, no Luigi to help you through the stage, nothing. This means the only way to do it is to do it, and it forces the player to get good at the game. Throughout the levels there are checkpoints that allow you to start there every time you die, and this can be useful when exploring where secrets can be hidden. Like in Returns, there are hidden puzzle pieces scattered about each stage, and they are pretty challenging to discover. There are patterns to help locate them, but some are placed in dangerous places that will probably result in a few deaths. Thankfully, you can spare a few lives to go searching for them. Also returning from the previous games are the Kong letters. Collecting all 4 letters earns you some bonus gallery pieces and are also fun to try and collect, though they are much easier to find throughout the stage and are usually hanging out in plain sight. New to Tropical Freeze are hidden exits hidden in some stages. These open new, alternate levels you can complete, and they tend to be more difficult, and the exits are extremely tricky to find. All these secrets add up to a packed game. Like in the previous games, each world ends in a boss battle and they can be pretty challenging on their own. They follow the traditional video game format of threes in that there are three groups of three. Hit them 3 times and they'll switch up their patterns, and this needs to be done 3 times. As mentioned, they can be pretty challenging, and losing your partner just makes them even more difficult. The game is 100% solid, but it does have one issue that it shares with Returns, just not the same extent, and that is the controls. In Donkey Kong Country Returns, your gameplay experience was somewhat scuffed by the insistence of waggle controls. You needed to waggle the remote if you wanted to roll or ground pound. Here, that is gone if using either the gamepad or Pro Controller, but in its place is a strange timing needed to keep moving when you just need to keep rolling. It can get frustrating to have it work sometimes, but not all the time. Thankfully, there was only one stage where that was needed. Rambi the Rhino makes his return from Returns, and he plays the same. He's only used in a few levels, but it's nice to see him return again. One other thing that makes its return is water. You can now go underwater, and there are entire stages that span both the water and land. The gameplay is vastly different underwater, and your roll is replaced with a spin. Unlike in the previous games, you have an air meter when underwater, but thankfully air bubbles are in great supply and are placed all around the stage. The underwater stages give some variety and are always welcome in a Donkey Kong game. Retro did a fine job with the music last game, even without the musical mastermind behind the Donkey Kong Country games. This time though, they dragged him back into the game, and it's magical. David Wise, the composer behind the original Country games and some of Rare's other masterpieces, brings his best here, and it shines just as bright as the game's gameplay. There are some remixed tracks, but they are brought to life in a different way thanks to them being improved by the better sound tech. The music also changes throughout the stage in some parts, and that's always a cool thing when done right. Some new tracks are better than others, and the ones from your youth will always sound better than something new, but what's here is top tier music, and my hopes of David Wise sticking around with Nintendo a little longer are ignited. Another thing improved from Returns are the visuals, but that's hardly surprising considering the Wii U being vastly more powerful than the Wii was. Still, Retro was able to make the Wii dance in the visual department with the last game, and they went on to do the same here. I thought not half a year ago that Super Mario 3D World was the best looking Wii U game, but now I think that this is. The level design is fantastic and beautiful, while the more interactive stages are still a sight to behold. I had to pick my jaw up off the floor a few times when playing this game, and part of the reason is how detailed and large the levels actually are. The stages feel a lot longer than in previous games, and there are more of them, so it leads to a lot of eye candy. Each world is themed differently like is expected, but here there are usually different types of hot, tropical areas that have been frozen over, which leads to some cool moments. The Kong family's fur looks great up close, and their animations look great as well. Retro has given the game the ability to change the camera at certain points, which makes for some more creative level design, and it's just crazy to think about how much detail and effort a game played on a 2D plane is crammed into it. I think it's safe to say that Retro has eclipsed most other 2D platformers out there, and they put Donkey Kong back up on top of the banana pile like he was back in the years of the Super Nintendo. Retro has once again proved to the world that they know what they are doing. This game looked to be a sort of cash-in, hoping to jump on the success of the previous game, but it proved to be more than a mere expansion pack and brought the series a little further along its path of greatness. Donkey Kong Country is a more enjoyable franchise than most other platformers, even more than Mario in some cases. Looking at Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, it's not hard to see why. Tropical Freeze is well worth the asking price and more. These are the types of games that become instant classics, and it's definitely a modern classic. It's filled to the brim with quality, and while it's not the mature, blood-soaked paradise that most people are used to, it's what gamers need. Now Retro, make your own IP for Wii U. I award Tropical Freeze a 5 out of 5.